Welcome to Spectrum Colored Glasses. Who am I? Dr. Nico DePaz, mother of sons on the autism spectrum, PhD, BCBA, and owner of a private practice supporting families of children with autism. Why am I here? To share my story in hopes that it can make someone's life just a little better. Today's topic: accepting the diagnosis. The autism diagnosis can be a very heavy experience. So much information, misinformation, and in some cases, it almost appears as if it's a death sentence, that everything is all bad, that your family is not going to recover, that nothing will ever be the same. Your child will not be able to achieve your hopes and dreams for their future. All of these things going through your mind once you get that diagnosis. And I have to say that for me, I started out working with children with autism before I had kids, right? And so I've experienced what that feels like from a professional perspective and from another parent's perspective. And I saw the struggles that these parents had, and I was able to, as a professional, get off of that path. And I could be with these children, but then I could leave. Getting a diagnosis myself for my son, I couldn't leave. This then became my life. And even with my professional experience, accepting of the diagnosis, it really took some time. It took phases, actually. When my son was still nonverbal, and he had missed the milestone of babbling and first words, I sought out support and help because he was not talking. And this support came in the form of a tutor slash teacher coming to the house, doing puzzles with him, doing different activities with him, to try to get him to engage and eventually have language. During that time, we also had a lot of different people coming into the home to do assessments with him. The term autism was floated around. I heard them suggesting that that might be what was happening. And to be quite honest, I asked that one of the people don't come back to my house because my son is smart. My son is not talking. True, I've got a husband in the home who speaks Portuguese, so there's two languages that are being heard in the home. So possibly this is a bilingual thing, and he is just going to be slow to talk. The person who said, well, I think it might be autism, that angered me because I'd worked with children with autism, right? I had seen what it looks like, and that's not what it looked like to me as a previous professional in the autism field. That's not what it looked like to me. And so, how dare you come into my home and say that my child has autism? Leave and don't come back. I really did that. Now, here's the thing. I also heard the word floating around: denial. Denial. And for me, that was someone pointing a finger at me directly and saying that you know the truth and you're choosing not to know the truth. And I couldn't understand, why would you come for me in that way? I am going through this process. You're giving me this information about my child that I don't see yet. So how dare you tell me that I know this thing and I'm choosing not to know this thing? That experience actually shaped the way that I train my staff. Part of their of training involves parent compassion and looking at it from the lens of the parent. And one of the main things that we talk about is the label denial and how this can be harmful and hurtful to parents. So instead of that, when I was obtaining my doctorate in health psychology, I learned about Prochaska's stages of behavioral change. And the first one was pre-contemplation. It implies that the parent has not even thought of it. The idea has not even crossed their minds. That's pre-contemplation. There's no blame there. It just hasn't crossed their mind. They're not choosing not to know anything. It's just information that has not um, settled in their brain. It has not become part of their thought process. So that's pre-contemplation. The next stage is contemplation. Now, yes, the thought has entered your mind. You're starting to see things. You're starting to see that, my child isn't doing what other children are doing. My child isn't playing like the other children. My child isn't talking. I recall taking my son to different birthday parties of friends and just sitting back and watching the differences. He was off playing by himself where all of the other children were running and having a great time with each other. And I silently contemplated that there is a difference. What is that difference? I'm not sure, but there's a difference. You go from a point of not even thinking that autism is even something that is a possibility. You don't see it, right? Then contemplation. Now you're starting to see some differences. And then preparation. Preparation is, okay, I'm seeing these differences. Now what do I do about it? And that is when you're scouring the internet, when you are asking people, how do I address this? How can I get an assessment? How can I get an evaluation? What do I do? Because these are things that I'm seeing. So that's your preparation. You're trying to get all of your information. You're doing your research so that you know what is your next step. Then we move to action. Action is actually scheduling that appointment, going to that appointment, and receiving the diagnosis. So your actions, now you're making movements based on the things that you have now noticed and you have researched and you have decided upon the steps to take. You're in the action phase. And this could also mean your child has ABA and you have enrolled them in ABA, you've sought out a company, and you started to do things and interventions in order to address your child's autism. After that, you get to maintenance. And maintenance is basically continuing all the things um, that you have initiated, that you have activated, and the different actions that you're now doing. So that's maintenance. And actually, it goes into a circle because after maintenance, you might run into a whole nother thing that you haven't noticed. That you're in the pre-contemplation stage all over again, and then contemplation, and then preparation, and action, and then maintenance. And so it's a cycle. and it continues. It's a never ending cycle. And this particular theory, actually, for me, is much softer. It is more compassionate on our parents. It was more compassionate for me because now it wasn't about denial. Now it wasn't about, oh, she just doesn't want to believe it, and just a lot of horrible things. Oh, she just doesn't want to accept it, right? And that is the farthest from the truth.
Either way, you are making choices and decisions as you become aware of them. And that is always a time to be kind to yourself. And you're going to hear me say that a lot, being kind to yourself. It's so important. We beat ourselves up about so many things. But with this, it allows you to be kind. It allows you to say, I didn't see it. There's no blame. I just didn't know. I just didn't see, right? Pre-contemplation. And understanding that there is this process of acquiring the knowledge, then deciding what do you do about this knowledge, then acting upon that, and then continuing those actions. That process for me is a kinder, more self-compassionate process. And that's what I hope for you. I hope that you are being compassionate with yourselves, regardless of whether you see it when you saw it, whether you're seeing it now, regardless of the stage that you are in. Understand that each of these stages require grace. Each of these stages require you to take your time. You can know it when you're ready. You can know it when you know it. Take your time. That's the biggest thing. Take your time. Embrace it as it comes. And love your family. Love your child. That's all for today. And we have part 2 coming up. See you next time.